I was asked to comment a bit on what the bank does particularly, or what is our view on what should be done in terms of multisectoriality, intersectorality. Today there's been a lot of discussion on these issues. And I'm glad to see that, in fact, a lot of the people that spoke with much more experience, of course, and very wise people, just before I did this morning, they definitely raised many of the points that I'm going to raise. So please bear with me if I'm repeating some stuff. Basically, I think one of the things I would like to put on the table for consideration is, let me stop right here. Let me then first address a few things that were said in general and have a 2 minutes commercial about the World Bank, if you wish, in a nice way. I want to assure our colleagues at the UN that the World Bank is extremely engaged and interested in NCDs, and yet, yes, indeed, we haven't yet talked to our New York team, partly because we wanted to make sure that we gave them something substantial to chew on, some good lettuce to chew on in this particular case. I also want you to know that our group on maternal, the group that we have in my unit working on maternal and child health are they've been cooperating very closely with us, and they're very, very clear that this is definitely an issue that is central to maternal and child health, all the NCDs. And as many of you know, our health strategy, our 2007 health strategy, discussed very clearly the issues of NCDs, and two of our indicators are specifically related to that. One is a BMI, related to BMI in children and adults, and the other is on smoking prevalence, both in children and adults. So we definitely have this very front and center in our strategy in health, but also as a developmental issue. Going to the specific talk of points of today, I think it will be interesting to review quickly kind of definition, not because I think we need to come up with a specific definition of intersectorality or multisectorality, but because I think it will be important as we advance to end up with a common concept of what we are discussing about. And I'm just going to share with you a few of the definitions that we've heard today and in other days, from multisectorality, intersectorality being about working with different or across UN agencies, to the idea of having a specific sector taking a specific intervention and running with it on its own. Let's assume for a second that education would run with health education in the school. They will do their curriculum, no links with other sectors. That's also a valid way to look at that. And others that look really at interventions that often need more than one sector to be working in joint. Taxation, of course, falls within the realm of the ministries of finance, but often the actual implementation or enforcement of it may fall from anything most likely with municipalities or local governments. So those are another way of look at multisectorality. Of course, Dr. Alain had very clearly discussed public sector, private sector, and within public sector, yet again, we have a huge variety, municipalities, regions, etc., levels. And private sector, civil society, again, particularly in this case, I think there is much more heterogeneity in the potential interest of civil society in this issue than, let's say, in more common, in issues that we've been dealing with prior to today. Finally, a final way in which I've been seeing people looking at intersectorality is from the life cycle point of view. As you go through life cycle in NCDs, obviously, there are sectors or areas that may be better positioned to influence policy, whether it's undernutrition that has been very clearly pointed out, indoor air pollution as a child, or obviously as an adult, but particularly as a child, or whether you're a working person and then industry, trade, etc., maybe much more the point, or labor ministries or groups dealing with labor and unions may be much more important to talk to. So this is just to give you a sense of, I mean, you all know a huge map of potential agencies and potential interventions. But I think there we go to the next level that also Dr. Elaine warned us very clearly, is the need to actually focus. And I think while it's very important that we maintain a dialogue across all these stakeholders, our experience in AIDS, and I was very encouraged what previous presenters have told us about AIDS, at least in the World Bank experience, it's important to be focused, and there is global focus, but there is also country-specific focus. Obviously, no cookie cutter, that has been said, and I think what we've learned is be flexible, be opportunistic on your specific focus. And here, what we have suggest or have experienced is that every country is going to have very specific salient issues, as we've seen in the previous presentation. And those are obviously the ones, if the key issue is tobacco, although at global level we may all agree that tobacco is undoubtedly the main killer, country-specific situations, like potentially in Africa, this may not be the main issue. So we are going to have to be really flexible and see what is the issue that the specific country has. Who are the agencies in that specific country that have decision power and capacity? That's what we've confronted again and again. You know, it may be the right issue, but if there is no decision power, there is no influence in one sector or another, it's very difficult to change policy. And of course, which ones are we as health people having, or as a health sector, having access and information about it? So again, that's very specific. I think I'll kind of round up, if you wish, sharing with you a bit what kind of our approach so far. We're of course, this is a work in progress because, like many other organizations, although we've been working for very long times in NCDs, given the fact that we work very closely with middle-income countries who have been facing this issue for very long, we have not necessarily approached it at a very systematic thinking way. So it's only in recent years that we've been really asking ourselves, how do we go about this in a more systematic way? I think we're looking, basically, our key approach is the prevention side. We think that even more important in NCDs than in other areas, prevention is crucial because the chronicity of most of these most of the NCDs imply an enormous cost, not so much or not exclusively in dollars, but an enormous cost in terms of human suffering, and what it means also in terms of savings for families, savings for the economy, and the expenditure not only for governments but for families. We're seeing, there is a recent study coming out of India, we're seeing that what we used to think people put, were this type of expenditure we thought drove people into poverty, health expenditure, was catastrophic expenditures. That, of course, is one issue. But today we're seeing that chronic catastrophic expenditure, if you wish, the day-to-day trickle of having to buy antihypertensives, etc., is what's really driving a lot of people into poverty now. So I think this is really a key aspect of it. So prevent there is key in our mind, and that's what really most of the multi-sectoral approaches can make most of a difference. There is, of course, then, we cannot prevent everything, and then there is, of course, the need to actually prepare. Unfortunately, we've seen it. The reality is already there. The issues are already there. That requires completely a strengthening of the health systems. I'm not going to insist a lot on that. You all have said it. You know that's very much our approach. I want to suggest that it's not only narrowly defined health systems. In terms of care, chronic care, a lot of it is not really the health system. It's really social protection. Again, it's really what are we going to do in terms of people that are not able to work anymore, disability, and not bringing resources home. But also I want to raise a gender issue here. We know that when there is a chronically ill or mildly disabled person at home, most likely someone is going to have to stay home to take care of this person. Most likely it's going to be a woman, and often maybe a girl that may be able not to continue her studies, or a woman that may not be able to go and find work. So that I think is an issue that we need to take into consideration. I think I'm going to wrap up here, basically, and just leave you with a few examples of our work at country level, and what just a minor point on our recent discussions with WHO, dialogue with WHO in this particular issue. We've been very fortunate to be able to work closely with Dr. Awan in trying to move the agenda forward. The bank has been working on NCDs anywhere from obvious countries like in Poland and Russia, etc. Those are all countries in which a lot of work has been done in the past, particularly in terms of reinforcing the health system to prevent and treat NCDs. Most recent examples right now, we can talk about Uruguay in the Americas, which is of course the region where is hosting us today, and also very recently in India, in Tamil Nadu. So, this is really across all the regions and all the areas of development. What we've realized is that many of those countries are confronting this issue at a lower, let me rephrase that, at an earlier point in their development cycle. Not only earlier ages, but earlier point in their development cycle. And that is, of course, very worrisome, and we don't really understand fully what that may mean for development or for economic implications. We will argue that this is an area that we need to further research. And in terms of the work that we've embarked on with WHO, moving towards the NCD summit or high-level meeting, as we've been very clearly explained today, it has been suggested that we work in the area of multisectoriality, of basically explaining or thinking and reflecting of what this means, and preparing and sharing with all of you. And of course, all the opinions and support are more than welcome. So I want to extend to all of you this invitation in terms of thinking, what does it mean? Let's learn from what AIDS already learned. What does it mean for us, multisectoriality, and how do we go about implementing it in a way that's feasible, sustainable economically, but also, as has been said, focused. And I'll stop here. Thank you very much.